All right, thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Sydney Charnello. I work for Coconino County Superior Court. And I've been happy to be part of all these cross-training sessions. And today we are doing a session on the detention facility. So with us today, we have Commander Figueroa, who is the jail commander for our local detention facility. And he's going to talk to us a little bit today about the role of the jail and hopefully be able to answer anybody's questions that they may have. So throughout this webinar, if you want to place your questions in the chat, we'll be monitoring it, and at the end we can make sure we get to those questions and answer them to the best of our ability. Thank you. Adios.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. As Cindy said, I am Matt Figueroa. I am the jail commander for the sheriff's office, and I guess my primary duty is overseeing our detention facility here in Flagstaff, and then we also have a 72-hour holding facility in Page, which is a 48-bed holding facility. And yes, this afternoon I am here to explain our detention facility and specifically what our jail does or what jails do primarily, and what they do across our nation. And what better to do that is with a video that we have. So we do this all the time. We go out and we have what is called our Citizens Police Academy. We partner with our 3 other law enforcement agencies in Northern Arizona. That is our Flagstaff Police Department, our Northern Arizona University Police Department, and the Department of Public Safety. And then we also have our national our Forest Service that also comes in. And what we do is we partner together and we host a Citizens Police Academy. And they come in, and we do this twice a year, and they come in once a week and they learn about what law enforcement does in our community. And one of the things, or one of the classes that we do is all about the jail. And we walk them through specifically what a jail is about and what our jail here does in Flagstaff and what they do in Page. And we actually take them on a full-on tour of the jail and explain what our different holding facilities are, what our different housing units are, and basically walk them through a day in the life of somebody that becomes justice involved and then goes through the adjudication process and are living in our facility. So as I mentioned, we have a video that clearly explains what jails do throughout our country. And that's what I want to be able to show you guys today, because instead of sitting here and having me explain to you, we have a video that can clearly do that for us and for me. And it's about a 20-minute video. So we're going to go through that right now. And then once that video is done, then that's when I'll add a little bit more information about, once that person is in our custody, when we try to tie it into medical needs and behavioral health needs, how that all begins, and some of the pitfalls, some of the issues, some of the struggles that we deal with when we have to then provide those needs, and basically open it up to questions from everybody that's participating today. And which will be a great time for you to be able to shoot out those questions, and hopefully I'll be able to answer those for you. So unless anybody has a burning question they need to just get off their chest right now, I can answer that now, or we can go through the video and get started. Oh, all right.
vacuums away from the people.
Social of the chair.
To keep bad people that do bad things away from the people that do good things.
That's right, we bad.
Don't you dare talk that way to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally, I've been to jail and prison or one and the same.
I don't think the jail here really serves that much of a purpose. I mean, it's definitely a necessary thing, but I think that. I mean, it's pretty much misdemeanor, it's nothing really major.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Everyone has their own concept of what a jail should be. We thought the one that we had was just fine, you know, you can pack them in like rats in a cage and they'll be just fine.
I think the community should be aware of what's going on in the jail in this community. I think it has an obligation to be aware, as a footing the bill.
Brick and mortar, fences, walls, doors locked tightly shut, containing trouble, keeping it away, out of sight and out of mind. Jails. If we think about it at all, most of us picture the images of violence and danger we see on television or in the movies. We don't picture jails as a fundamental community service that directly affects our safety and security. We may not realize that jails are a primary responsibility for most local communities. They may not recognize that we influence the way jails are run, or the jails reflect our values. But we do influence how jails function, and the more we know about them, the better equipped we are to make more informed choices about their operation. The purpose of this program is to provide basic information about jails. In the next few minutes, we'll look beyond the walls and go inside jails in a variety of communities. We'll discuss the roles jails play in the criminal justice system. We'll explore the major functions of jails and the challenges carrying out those functions. And throughout this program, we'll look at how communities benefit from well-run jails. What is a jail?
Jails, especially small jails, are part of the community.
The basic function of a jail is definitely community safety.
They serve basically as the gatekeeper for every person that enters the criminal justice system.
And it's a community within a community.
Jail, it's at the very hub of the criminal justice system that
They violate probation or parole, and when they're being detained for other jurisdictions. One of the most misunderstood of these roles is pretrial detention. Let's examine this concept in more detail. The courts allow most people who are arrested to post a bond to ensure that they will appear in court. People who are financially able to post a bond are released from jail, pending their trial. People who are not financially able to post a bond must remain in jail to ensure their appearance in court. People held for pretrial detention are accused of a wide range of crimes, from petty theft and bad check writing to kidnapping, rape, and homicide. In a small minority of these cases, the charges against the person are so serious that the court may refuse to set bond, and the person must remain in jail. More than half of the people in the nation's jails are pretrial inmates. In the American system of justice, the accused are considered innocent until proven guilty. Therefore, pretrial detention inmates are in jail to ensure their appearance in court and not to be punished. This is a critical point that is often misunderstood or overlooked. Jails and prisons. We often think of them as the same, but there are distinct differences between jails and prisons. As we've seen, jails receive newly arrested people directly from the street, although a wide array of inmates for a variety of reasons, with most of those inmates being pretrial detainees. Prisons, on the other hand, incarcerate only those people who have been tried and convicted of serious felony crimes and sentenced to long terms of incarceration.
Every person who's on death row has gone to a local jail first. Every person who's serving a life sentence has been to a local jail first. Of course, everybody who's come to jail on a very minor charge and then gotten out is going through the same place. And that's what's truly unique about jail, is that it has to be able a tremendously broad range of people as they're brought in for incarceration.
In addition, most jails are operated and financed at the local level with local tax dollars. Prisons, on the other hand, are run by state or federal agencies using state or federal funds. Local communities exert significant control over the way their jails are run and the decisions they make about allocating community resources. The more local communities know about jail operations, the better prepared they can be to make well-informed decisions about the jail to benefit the community as a whole. Let's look at day-to-day jail operations and the challenges inherent to those operations. Jail operations involve two primary functions. One is booking and release, the other is custody. Booking and release is the function of processing people into and out of the jail. The most significant challenge of the booking and release function is the constant flow of people that pass through jails today. More than 10 million people are processed through American jails every year. That's more than 1,000 people every hour, every day, each year. Every one of them must be identified, searched, fingerprinted, photographed, and screened for risk and need.
The challenge of processing people, it has to do with the numbers. We've seen a huge change in our inmate population in terms of numbers that we serve. And it's not even necessarily the numbers that are incarcerated, it's the numbers that go through booking. That's probably one of the biggest challenges that we have, is the people that get processed in, get fingerprinted, get booked, and then get released.
The booking function is complicated not only by the sheer numbers of arrestees, but also by the fact that many new arrestees are in a state of physical or mental crisis when they enter a jail. Angry, afraid, intoxicated, or ill. Jails cannot choose whom they will send. Jails must take all arrestees brought to their door, no matter what their condition, attitude, or frame of mind. Not only are large numbers of people processed into jails each day, but also significant numbers are released because they have posted bond, completed their sentences, or are transferred to other jurisdictions. Releasing inmates in jail is an entirely separate set of complex activities jail staff must perform. The second major function of jails is custody. Custody is the function of holding people in the jail. The primary goal of custody is to hold people in a manner that protects the safety and security of inmates, staff, and the community. Safety and security depend not only on the building itself, but also on the effective management of inmates. To ensure safety and security, jails require specialized structures and security systems that are expensive to build and maintain, including fences, walls, doors, locks, cameras, and communication equipment. In addition, the ability to manage inmate behavior is critical to maintaining safety and security. Managing inmate behavior is probably the most difficult challenge jails face. Jails are required to manage a tremendously diverse population. Just as jails have little choice about which arrestees they accept, they have little or no control over the number and type of inmates they house. Judges, prosecutors, and arresting agencies determine this. Jail populations include young and old, male and female, rich and poor, highly educated and uneducated, and all races and ethnicities. In fact, jail populations are primarily composed of local community members and include people from all segments of the community.
In the community jails, the community detention facility, the offender is more likely to be part of the community, more right back into that same community, becomes a part of that community again.
There's one thing I could have citizens think about when we're making decisions about jail. It would be, think about if it was their brother, their mother, their sister, their son that was in jail.
Many inmates bring serious, sometimes life-threatening problems with them when they enter the jail. Jails must routinely manage fear, rage, violent, and social or suicidal behavior, as well as problems associated with poverty, unemployment, and illiteracy.
When inmates are housed here, they bring many problems with them, including mental health problems, long-term drug and alcohol addictions, family problems, and many financial problems.
The first step in managing this diverse group of inmates is to classify them. This means jails must accurately assess the risks and needs of inmates, taking into account the danger they pose to themselves or others, their escape risk, medical and mental health needs, and their behavior while in custody. To ensure safety and security, jails must be able to separate certain inmates from others. For example, they must be able to separate men from women, adult offenders from juveniles, violent or disruptive individuals from those who are nonviolent and compliant, and inmates with physical or mental illnesses from those who are healthy.
I think classification is probably the single most important component of our whole processes here at the detention center.
I think sometimes the public thinks we just take them and throw them in a cell. And we don't do that. It takes a lot of review, it takes a lot of paperwork and looking at these people from behavior, past behaviors, present behaviors to charges to get them where they need to be and keep them safely secure. And where they're not in any danger.
And if you don't have the space, which is the big thing that we found before, when you have a 100-bed facility that's running 120 people, you have no place to move people around. The thing I found was interesting is once a facility is about 80% full, it's full. So you have room to move inmates from one area to another as the need presents it.
Jail staff must also effectively supervise inmates. Many problems in jails are reduced when staff clearly communicate expectations for inmate behavior, provide incentives for positive behavior, and hold inmates individually accountable when they violate rules. The behaviors often associated with jail inmates, assaults, vandalism, possession of dangerous contraband, and escapes, are greatly reduced when the inmate population is well managed. With a reduction in these behaviors comes a reduction in costs to the community. Costs related to medical expenses, repairs and maintenance, and lawsuits resulting from injury and death. It's also important to recognize that when communities take custody of inmates, they assume control over and responsibility for all aspects of the inmates' lives, where they live, the condition of their housing, their personal hygiene, what they eat, what they wear, their medical and mental health, and their personal safety. This means jails are obligated to maintain their buildings in good repair and must provide clean and serviceable clothing, nutritious meals, medical and mental health care, physical exercise, and secure storage of inmate property. Jails must also allow inmates to maintain contact with family, friends, clergy, and attorneys through visiting, telephone access, and mail. With all these responsibilities, jails are, in fact, self-contained communities.
I think people think of a jail in terms of just putting somebody away, locking them up and throwing them with the key. Jail operations is much more complex. We're a microcosm of the community. A jail is a small community and it has all the challenges of any other community. in terms of providing safety, food, medical, education. We are a small community.
Some communities have chosen to go beyond meeting the basic needs of inmates by providing programs that offer opportunities for education, self-help, and change. These communities believe that programs are valuable inmate management tools and that they may help prevent some inmates from committing additional offenses after their release. Jails must be well maintained, well operated, and attentive to basic inmate needs, not only because this is critical to safety and security, but also because the law requires it. Communities that operate jails must do so in compliance with clearly established legal mandates. Before the 1960s, the public and courts largely ignored conditions and practices in jails. The courts had adopted a hands-off policy toward inmate complaints that challenged institutional conditions and practices. During the 60s and 70s, the U.S. became engulfed in a struggle to increase the rights of many groups. In such a climate, rights of prisoners became an issue. Courts across the nation recognized that jail inmates do not lose their constitutional rights, although those rights may be restricted. There is now a body of clearly established law with associated liability that addresses nearly every aspect of jail operations. Failure to meet the legal standards for jail operations can lead to crises, such as inmate and staff deaths, escapes, riots, fires, and hostage incidents. Incidents such as these can result in lawsuits, federal court intervention, significant legal costs, and financial damages that severely and adversely affect the function and services of local government.
If they don't care, if they don't get involved in the operations of jails and directions jails are going, then the resources that they now enjoy for the quality of life, things like parks and recreation, museums, libraries, and things that enhance the overall quality of life for the community, they'll have to find other funding sources because the jail will eat up all of those resources.
As we've seen, the jail is actually a self-contained community within a community containing a diverse population with diverse needs, a community that must carry out many complex activities in order to function, a community with a high level of potential liability. Adequate resources are essential for this community to operate effectively. Jails are one of the most costly functions of local government. Their specialized facilities are expensive to build and maintain. Jails operate 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. This makes them staff intensive and results in a high level of wear on facilities and their equipment, fixtures, and furnishings.
The county jail that we run is one of our largest funding burdens that we have on the county. And it's funded through local property taxes and broken receipts taxes in the community, and paid for exclusively by the local community.
There's a cost for running a jail, but I think there's a bigger cost to running an inadequate detention facility.
Staff are the most important and expensive resource contributing to the ultimate success or failure of a jail. But given the challenge of managing the inmate population, the wide array of activities, the complexity of those activities, and the significant liability involved in jail operations, hiring and retaining qualified staff is absolutely critical. Jail staff must be highly competent and well-trained.
Our personnel are our most valuable resource that we have. And we can have the infrastructure, we can have a facility, but without appropriate staff and appropriately trained staff to manage that, we're dead in the water.
They have to follow that inmate, they have to provide medical care when it's needed. They have to feed the inmate, all these things.
There is nothing more important in a jail than the guy that's working the floors. As we've seen, jails have well-defined roles in criminal justice system, but local communities can make certain decisions about which people require secure detention, which people can be managed in alternative settings.
Alternative sentencing is for those non-violent offenders who can carry out their court-ordered sentence in an alternative fashion, which means they can be trusted out in the community and come in here on an intermittent basis if they're spending the weekend with us in the working program, or can be housed here and work release and go out to their regular job during return. So we're a way of being very cost efficient And on the community side, it also means that those people stay productive in the community. They keep up with their court payments, they keep their employment so their family stays afloat. They keep up with their court ordered classes. And in the case of the work hinder program, many community projects get done with that labor force that goes out on the weekends.
Communities that understand the roles and functions of their jails are able to make well-informed decisions, not only about jail operations and resource allocations, but also about how their jails can be used most effectively.
Should be viewed as a precious commodity, one that you use very scarcely and only for the public safety and public good, not necessarily because you don't know what to do with the problem and have it end up in the jail.
Jails have a far greater significance in our communities than most of us realize. They are a primary responsibility for most local governments. They're a critical component of the criminal justice system, and they play an integral role in providing safety and security in our communities. When a community recognizes the importance of its jail, addresses jail-related issues, and supports the jail with adequate resources, the community as a whole benefits. The community can gain a greater voice in how its jail is run, reduce liabilities associated with its operation. The community can benefit from a safer, more efficient jail. This in turn can provide the most important benefit, a community that is safer and more secure overall.
Well, that is what a jail is, and that's across the country. That's the key components of what a jail is. It's not our specific, but that is everywhere. And for the normal public, there's a lot of confusion about what a jail does. They equate them or they compare them to prisons. There's a lot of confusion that we're just like prison, the prison system. There's confusion about comparisons about people that are sitting in our jail, that we only have misdemeanor people that are in our jail. They have no clue that we have people that have just committed homicide sitting in our jail. They think we only have petty offenses, first time DUI. They have no idea the size of our facility specifically. There's just a lot of misconceptions. They see, just like they said at the very beginning of this video, what they see on TV, they think is what really happens in our facility. That's exactly why we do what we do for our Citizens Police Academy. Not only that, but we welcome the community and the public to reach out to us and come and find out exactly what happens in our facility. And we welcome tours, we welcome questions, we welcome concerns, what they hear about from other people about either our jail specific, or they may hear the horror stories about what happens in other jails, and they'll reach out to us and say, does that really happen? Is that what is really happening in your jail? Or they may hear about somebody's experience in our facility, and they want to know if that's truly happening. And what we do, and one of the best ways for us to explain what happens in jails, is we welcome them to come in. And usually what happens is we'll sit them down and briefly explain to them how jails work, and then how our jail facility is operated, and then we will take them on a tour. And unfortunately, we hadn't been able to do that for several years because of COVID. And we actually tried to do a video, a walking tour video. It's just really hard to do, and then try to put audio to that. But that's one of the things that we're trying to focus on right now, is to put a similar video like this together, because we know it's really hard for some people to be able to come in and do a tour. But we welcome tours, and we've started doing tours again. Not only for those that are interested in working for us, of course, but just the general public. And we were doing a lot of tours for the public prior to COVID. And especially for those that either have concerns or just are curious about our jail, especially when we're trying to put together information for example, on our jail tax. Especially when we were going out to the community to get that jail tax extended. We were welcoming tours again, because, for the most part, our jail operations are solely funded by that jail tax. So our community, and those that come to the Flagstaff community to do any kind of recreation, any dollars that they spend while they're in our community, we get that funding from those jail tax dollars that funds our operations. Salaries and construction costs, all those tax dollars, we get a portion of that, and that is solely how our jail operations are funded. We only get a small portion of the general fund tax or general fund dollars from the rest of the county that specifically goes to the jail district. Everything else comes from jail tax dollars. So our community helps fund that. So because of that, we're very transparent, and we want our community to know how our jail operates and why we do the things that we do with programming and our operations in general. So this video is just a generic how jail operations are done. And that's why I wanted to show that, and then kind of basically do a Q&A and open up to questions, and then kind of gear it towards behavioral health or medical related issues, so I can answer any questions. But just to kind of just sum up a little bit of the information from the video, and just to throw out some information to everybody, and then we can get into that. One of the key points that this video touches on is a jail is basically a community within the community. Everything that happens in our community, specifically in Flagstaff or in Coconino County, happens inside this jail. Drugs, alcohol, violence, fights, bullying, anything that you can think of that happens in the community happens inside the facility, just in a smaller scale, and things that our officers have to deal with and try to mitigate and try to control, but it still happens. Death happens. Natural death happens. Suicide happens. Overdose happens. Illnesses happen. Outbreaks happen. Again, anything that you could think of is still going to happen inside our jail. We just do everything that we possibly can to mitigate that. But at the end of the day, things are gonna happen. But just as the video says, we key on that we're just simply, one of the things that we teach our officers all day long is we're a city within a city. And we try to give our officers the tools to deal with that. And one of our biggest tools, one of our biggest weapons that we give our officers from the very first day that they step in there to be great officers is their ability to communicate. That is the number one tool that they get, and we continue to build on and teach them, is your survival and your ability to be a great officer is your ability to communicate with not only our inmate population, but with your coworkers and with anybody that comes into that facility is going to be your number one tool. If you cannot communicate, you're not going to be able to survive working in there, because that is the only thing that you're going to be able to bring inside that facility every day that is going to keep you safe, and is going to allow you to respect and earn respect. And that survival is, if you're not able to talk to people, you're not going to be able to make it in there. Some of our statistics. So right now, our average daily population in there is 300 inmates. Again, the community doesn't realize how big it is. When you're just driving past and you're driving down Sawmill Road, you actually see the sign that says jail. A lot of people don't even realize that jail is there. And when they do realize the jail is there, it looks very small. It's just right there. They don't realize the magnitudes. If you do a flyover, then you realize, oh my God, the jail is huge. I never knew that the jail was so big. The actual capacity of the jail is 596. So if we had to actually put a body per bed inside our facility, we could hold up to 596. Prior to COVID, So prior to March of 2020, we were reaching 500. We were at the point where we were actually having meetings. We were starting to talk to judges saying, look, we are beyond capacity. In order to appropriately house people in our jail, and they talked a little bit about it in classification terms, in order to put people appropriately in housing units by gender and by criminal sophistication, we should not house more than 488 individuals. Even though we have 596 beds, our ability to classify individuals appropriately should not go more than 488. So we were already past that prior to COVID. When COVID hit, and you know, the CDC came out with us having to separate all of us out in the community and isolate and quarantine and all of that. We had to get with the judges and talk about our population. At that time, we had about 200 to 250 individuals in our custody on a daily basis that were there for misdemeanor, non-serious offenses. That was just the norm on any given day. You know, those were the individuals that we had on work crews all over the county doing free labor for us, working in the kitchen on a daily basis, working around the facility, doing free, you know, groundwork. We were taken out to Parks and Rec and doing all that labor out there for us. We were, again, putting out on road crews. They were the ones that were going out, again, like I said, out in the community. The judges asked us for a list of those individuals, and within a few days, we released basically half our population back out to the community. They looked at that, they looked at their charges, and these individuals were in custody on a daily basis for non-serious offenses. Again, trespassing, shoplifting, very, very low bond amounts, anywhere from $100 to $25 bonds that they could not pay in order to get out of jail. So again, the judges looked at that and they did a mass release from our custody. That dropped our custody from half. What that did is that allowed us to then look at all our housing units and space people out and create dorms that we could use for quarantine, because we had to set the standards for CDC to quarantine people for a certain amount of days, and then that got reduced during the next 3 years. So our population got cut in half, and that allowed us to follow the guidelines. We were booking, prior to COVID, we were booking about 10,000 to 11,000 people per year. Now we're looking at about 6,000 people per year. Our hope is that what COVID did is it showed us that we don't have to have 200 to 250 non-serious offenders living in jail every day. My hope is that we can keep that trend. Continuing to work with the judges, continuing to work with local law enforcement, which was another thing that we did during COVID, was we met with our partner law enforcement agencies and said, look, if we really don't need to bring these people to jail, let's please not do that right now because of our quarantine standards. We actually had to shut down misdemeanor arrests for a while in order to keep our population down. We did have some great conversations, and law enforcement did a great job of really looking at who we needed to arrest. We do have a lot more serious criminal people living in our facility right now, but that should be who we have in jail. People that are a threat to our community right now. So we do have a higher maximum security population in custody, and that's what it should be like. But because of that, some of our programs were not able to be started back up again, like Exodus. You know, that was one of the things that people were reaching out to me from the very beginning when we had to shut programs down because of COVID was, when are you going to start Exodus? When are you going to start Exodus? Well, think about it, guys. We all can't get together and go to church every day or go to all our sporting events or anything like that because we can't get back together right now because of COVID. Why would you guys expect me to put our Exodus groups back together if we can't do that out in the community? So we shut all those down. We don't have that same population right now in custody. So slowly, we started to look at that. And right now we do, we have one dorm, we have one housing unit that is our internal exodus program going on right now. We have 15 inmates as of today that is in that program. Because we are slowly having people complete the program, but we don't have it full blown and we're not taking new people in. So we continue to remind our judges that, you know, please don't sentence people into jail to complete exodus because those people are not getting screened to go into the program. Because we have internal people or internal inmates that are already in custody right now that are being screened to go into the program because we only have one dorm in there. All our other programming is going on. We have our volunteers that are coming back in and are going through programming. And so again, yes, we're booked. So also too, our population, we were supposed to be overpopulated in our facility by 2010. But again, because of collaborating efforts with our courts, with local law enforcement, you know, with our CJCC, we have been able to keep our population flat. So even though we booked 10,000 people a year prior to COVID, we release about that same number of people every year. And when I say we release that number of people, so we either release people back out into the community, we release that same number of people back to other agencies because they have warrants in other states or other facilities that are not in Flagstaff, or we send people to prison. Now, we release about 6,000 people a year. We book about 6,000, we release about that same number. So because of that, our population is staying pretty flat. So we're now at 2024, and we, at this point, have no expectation of having to build because of population growth. We are looking at doing a very significant build to redesign our intake and release area and to build on a new medical unit. But that's because of staff growth and just because we need to redesign our intake and release area because that was not designed properly when we built the facility in 2020. Has nothing to do with population whatsoever. It's just we're now 24 years old and we do business differently, which is crazy because just that conceptual construction is going to be almost double the cost of what it was to build the entire facility 24 years later, which is mind-blowing, but it is what it is. But yeah, because of the efforts that we've all been able to do, there is no sign of us having to build because of population growth. So that's awesome. So to kind of get into the medical side and behavioral health side of the jail. So when somebody does come to jail and they start their process, what they'll do is they'll come in and within the first 24 hours, they're going through our booking process. They're getting fingerprinted. They're being told what they're being charged with. They'll see the judge for the first time within that 24-hour period. The judge then tells them, you know, what they're being charged with and whether they're going to be released or not. If they're not going to be released, they're going to be told, you know, that they're either on a bond or they're on a no bond. And if they have an opportunity to bond out, then they have a chance to bond out. If they don't have any of that, at this time, they're going through medical assessments. They're being screened by our medical staff. This is their opportunity to talk about any medical conditions that they may have, any prescription medications that they are on, being assessed or being able to explain if they have any mental health issues, prescriptions that they may be on, their opportunity to get scheduled to be seen by our mental health nurse practitioner, which is a full-time sheriff's office employee, and then scheduled again to see one of our medical nurse practitioner, or to get those prescriptions that they may have verified. Whether they bring them with them or they, for some reason, actually had them on their person when they got arrested. All of that information, those medications need to be verified. So even though they may have them on them, or they say, hey, my family can bring them in, or they're in my backpack. That doesn't mean they're gonna get them. And that's one of the misconceptions that everybody has is, look, they have their medication, give it to them. That just doesn't happen that way. Even if it's something serious. Now, that doesn't mean they're gonna be denied their medication. That just means our medical staff needs to have an opportunity to verify that. Is that the actual medication that's in their pill bottle? Again, that doesn't mean they're gonna get it, but our medical staff needs to verify the prescription, where they get the prescription filled. Is it a valid doctor? When was the last time you saw this stuff? Do you just carry these around with you and you never take them? Again, is this a real medication? If it can get verified, depending on how fast it can get verified, our medical staff, and it's an appropriate medication that they can have while they're in jail, they're gonna fill that prescription and give it to them, not give the prescription that they have on them, because again, we don't know what it really is. If they say they're on a prescription, but they don't have it on them, again, they have to verify that. When was the last time did they take that prescription? Because we hear that a lot. Yes, I'm on XYZ. But they actually hadn't taken that medication from the year. So they have to get all that verified. They have to figure out when was the last time they took it. Is it still appropriate for them to take it? All of that needs to be done. Even if they're connected, even let's say they're connected to the guidance center or they're connected to Southwest Behavioral Health. They have to confirm that. We have to try to get records. And then we have to look at what that type of medication is. Is it appropriate for them to have in jail? This is one of the biggest sticking points. Not everybody realizes that, hey, this anxiety medication, mood stabilizer, or this type of medication might be okay for them to have when they're outside of custody, or when they're at home, or in a controlled environment, but it's detrimental for them to have when they're in jail. And it's because they can barter, they can sell it, they can trade for it, they can get beat up for it, they can rape for it, they can get raped for it. There's all kinds of other reasons why they cannot have this particular medication. There's other considerations we need to make in order for them to have this type of medication for those reasons I just said. We may have to move them somewhere else because this is a highly sought after drug. And again, for those reasons, they may not be able to get it right away. There may be an alternative. That's when we talk about our formulary that we have. And everybody says, oh, it's not on the jail formulary, so they're not going to give it to them. Or, you know, it wasn't on the formulary 20 years ago, so they're not going to get it. That's all changed. We have a broader formulary now. It's definitely a lot broader than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Especially now with our psychiatric nurse practitioner, Summer Wolf. And that's been one of our biggest accomplishments that we've been able to have over the years. Summer and I have been working there, me for 28 years. Both Summer and I were officers together. She's been able to, as an officer, put herself through all of the education that she's gone through to become a psychiatric nurse practitioner. And we've been able to make that move to her now. She is our psych NP. She has seen it all. She has done it all. She has worked under Dr. Schiff, where a lot of you guys in the behavioral health industry may have had some or none, or have only heard things about him. He has done a lot for behavioral health and has worked in that field too, where some people may not have agreed with the things that he's done, but he had his style and he had his practice. Summer's been there and done that too. She's seen a lot. she's seen a lot throughout the years with our inmate population. She definitely has a lot of experience and has seen a lot of these individuals that we have coming through the facility and has come back over and over again. And that advocacy that she has done to try to get individuals out and back in the services has just been a great force for us. But anyway, there's such a huge process to try to get individuals not only just normal medications, but their behavioral health needs met while they're in jail is a process. It's not an overnight thing, and a lot of individuals just don't understand. They have their medication in their pocket. Why can't you just give it to them? It doesn't work that way. It's a process. And we don't just sit on it. We don't just ignore it. It's just there's certain steps that take, and that's, you know, the process to explain today. As soon as somebody walks into our door, especially now that we contract with an actual private medical company that is now in our facility, as soon as somebody is brought into the facility, we now have a nurse that is stationed in our pre-intake area. They're the ones doing the initial screening now. Our officers do not ask those medical questions as they're walking through the door like we used to. They actually see a nurse as soon as they're coming in. So a lot of those misconceptions are out the window, where we used to get those complaints. Well, we don't ever get to see the nurse until like 2 weeks later. That is so not true. We have a nurse that sees them as soon as they're coming in. They're the ones that do a quick initial assessment to even see if we're going to accept them by law enforcement, or if they need to have certain things that they may be saying or exhibiting or showing that they need to get cleared for, either at FMC or primarily at FMC, before we will even accept them into our custody by that law enforcement officer. And then if they are accepted, we continue with the process. If they say they have high blood pressure, but their levels are at a certain acceptable level, our nurses know right away. So if there are medication needs or tests, blood tests, or checks, blood checks, or anything like that, that they need to be aware of and get them on a schedule right away. Detox protocols. Everywhere else in the state, they're having huge fentanyl issues where there are people overdosing and dying on a daily basis that are being brought into custody, dying on the main pre-intake floor regularly, and then dying almost immediately once they're being placed in housing units. That's happening in Maricopa, that's happening in Pima. We fortunately, knock on the wood down below, don't have that issue here in Flagstaff yet. Ours is alcohol. Our biggest issue is alcohol detox. We have one of the best detox regimens that our medical staff puts individuals on almost immediately when they come into custody, so that we don't have that detox withdrawal and that potential for that individual to potentially go into cardiac arrest, where we were having that potential issue a year and a half ago prior to us bringing on Valpac. So that's one of the biggest improvements that we have, and one of the biggest issues we face when individuals first come in with our large population of individuals coming in and then coming in intoxicated and then having to go cold turkey and go through an alcohol detox. So having that nurse right there when they first come in, getting cleared, and then during that first 24 hours, seeing the judge, and if they stay with us, they go through a complete medical assessment at that point. And then that's when calls are being made, if they're on any kind of prescription medications, or again, if they're tied to a behavioral health system in Flagstaff or anywhere else, because they've either divulged that, that's when those calls are being made. That's when we're trying to get them connected. That's where tasks are being made to Summer to try to get them reconnected. Or if they're showing signs and symptoms of mental health, but they're not connected, that's where that's being identified. That's what tasks are being made so that Summer could schedule a time to see that person. We've also added with WellPath a mental health clinician. That way, that's taking some of the burden off of Summer, so she can be fully focused on just being the psychiatric nurse practitioner and not having to fill the role of a mental health clinician as well. And then trying to see our general population that's living in our housing units as well. We have a dedicated housing unit, unfortunately, that has about 24 clearly identified inmates that are living in our facility right now with mental health issues on mental health psychotropic medications. Well over 50% of our inmate population are on mental health medications and are on either co-occurring substance abuse and mental health issues. That is a steady population for many, many years. That's clearly in our jail report that we have been putting out for, I don't even know how long. It's probably even closer to 62% of our population are on those type of medications. I mean, that's just our population. I mean, if you're healthy and you're vibrant, you're not coming to jail. If you're healthy and you're vibrant and you might have committed a crime, you're definitely not staying in jail. It's our unhealthy, poor individuals that unfortunately are staying in jail. And that our statistics clearly show that. What our statistics clearly show is whenever somebody leaves our jail, they're leaving our jail a heck of a lot healthier than they were when they first got there. Regardless of what people say, regardless of what advocates out in the community may say about jails and prisons in general, people that leave our jail healthier than they ever been. Unfortunately, what happens though is that there's no stable, reinforced system out there for that individual. They go back to whatever they were doing and they come back to us in bad shape again, and we start that system all over again. With the exception of our newest program that we implemented over a year ago with our collaborative efforts with Health and Human Services, Pathways, which I'm sure everybody hopefully that's on this webinar knows about, with the efforts of our sheriff, being able to get a hold of a large pot of gold, the new program that he instituted with our Pathways program. And the best thing that he did was listen to himself and a few of us. And instead of trying to teach a lot of our sheriff staff on how to do this type of programming, he went and got the best people to do it. And that was our Health and Human Services, and said, you guys are the experts. So I'm going to bring you here. Here is the building. You find the right people to do this. Here is the money. Bring everybody here to do these services. So when these people get out of jail, we're going to come here and you're going to do it. And that's been the best thing that we've done so far. So I know that was a whole lot of information. I know I ramble a lot, and everybody that knows me that's on this webinar, that's what I love to do. And if anybody ever gives me the mic, that's what I will always do, because I'll always advocate for our jail, because I'm almost positive, and I will always say that we run the best one in the state, if not in the country, which is why everybody comes and watches what we do and comes to visit what we do. And I'm always welcome anybody to come and walk through our jail any time of the day, any day of the week, to see what we do. And with that, I open myself up to questions, scrutiny, or anything that you would like to ask, or that I could possibly clarify with what we do and what a jail does specifically or generically, or what we do specifically.
So we don't have any questions right now in the chat, so I'll just remind everybody to put their questions in the chat, and if they don't have any, then we will relieve Matt of his services for the day.
Sweet.
Just getting a lot of thank yous.
Well, everybody knows where to find me. 8 years of life.
Yeah, and we have some handouts that we can send out via email to everybody who attended the webinar, just talking about some of the programming in the sheriff's office in general.
And if nobody has toured Pathways, please come by and tour it. And if anybody would like a jail tour, send me an email and we can set that up.
Awesome.
All right.
Commander, if a treatment provider has a client that they suspect is incarcerated, how would they be able to confirm whether they are or not?
They can actually call the jail, either the 928-226-5204 number and navigate that. Or they can just send me an email and I can get them to our intake area to just confirm the name. And they can do that too. Also too, if you send me your email, we send out a population report every day to a mass email out to many providers and individuals so they can check that population list. We're also, it's a low priority to our IT department, but we tried a few years ago, but we're looking at trying to get our population on our webpage. So people can just go to the webpage and check the population list. So they can check that way. So those are just a few ways to be able to do that.
Awesome.
Awesome. And how would they be able to visit with a client?
So there's a few ways you can come to the jail, especially if you're a provider. One of the things that we changed, so we have two booths, one's an attorney booth and one is a professionals booth. The attorney booth is set up so that it doesn't record audio or video. We went ahead and changed the professional booth to be the same way. So as long as you show that you are a professional visitor wanting to visit your client, you can schedule the professional booth to visit your client that way, and that will not be audio or video recorded as well. So you can visit your client that way, or you can go to the ViaPath website, set up an account to video visit. And once you set up an account, then you can send me an email, because it's just that easy, because I'm on as the instructor today. I can then get you to our sergeant, who is the account manager for that. They can then reach out to our vendor and they can set you up so that your account will be set up to not record video or audio, and you can video visit with your client from your office, from your phone. Unfortunately, we do find out that people do it while they're driving. Please, I do not recommend that you do that while you're driving, but you can do that anywhere in the world. And again, we can set it up to where it's confidential. As long as you let us know and we approve you to be a professional visitor, you can do it that way. We have to be the ones that approve that though, because technically that is only supposed to be set up for attorneys, but we are allowing certain professional visitors, such as behavioral health providers, to be able to visit their clients that way. That way you're not bogging up our system by coming to the jail and using those booths, but you have that option to come to the jail and use the booths to do it that way.
Thank you. And Commander, I'll include your email in the chat.
Awesome.
And you can put my office number there too if you want to call it. Okay.
Cool. Thank you, everybody who joined today, and we will get all the handouts out as soon as possible. And as well as Commander Figueroa's email there is in the chat. And again, we just appreciate having you all here today. Thank you.